Do you think the rise of RLUSD and regulated stablecoins limits XRP's upside?
I'm gonna just play a little bit of the Ashish Birla interview that just took place, and I want your guys' honest opinion about what he's asked and how he answers the question. All right. So I'm just gonna revert and play this. It's like 2 minutes long, and then I'll pause it, and I want your guys' honest opinion because I just want to make sure I'm not crazy. I want to see if anybody catches it, and if you don't, then maybe I'm overthinking it.
Do you think the rise of RLUSD and regulated stablecoins limits XRP's upside? Or does a native token still hold a unique liquidity advantage that stablecoins can't match?
Before you had stablecoins, it was very hard to use any of the features on XRP. How do you get on and off? How the internet got started was that folks were able to dial in to the internet, then they got broadband access. Before that, it was just a handful of institutions and governments that could use the internet, but those on and off ramps gave access to the world. And I really think that stablecoins are on and off ramps. It makes it really easy to get on and then use all the great technology that blockchains are good for. In my opinion, really good for financial markets and having those form on XRP. I think all tokens are going to need liquidity. I think XRP is a great asset for providing that liquidity. I think it powers something called the XRP DEX.
With the Swift now having its own blockchain for fast settlement, is the bridge asset pitch still valid, or do you think gold's shifted since that?
No, I think that XRP is the bridge between traditional finance and blockchain, decentralized finance. Like, listen, like I'm not scared of Swift. Swift hasn't really changed since the 1960s. I don't think they're going to wake up one day and say like, hey, let's revolutionize, payments. I don't think that's how they're built. I don't think that's what their culture is about. But I think that you're going to see new companies come and use this technology. I think you're going to see banks bypass old legacy technologies and move directly to blockchain. You're already seeing the likes of BlackRock, Fidelity, come into this space. And the great thing about blockchain technology is you need fewer intermediaries, not more.
We talked about a few moments ago.
Does anybody have an opinion on what he was just asked? The first question he was asked is, will RLUSD stop XRP from experiencing price appreciation?
He said no, because just like the internet, how it started, just they're trying to unload people to use it.
I was there. I think that's pretty huge. I see at the very top they have Yellow and Evernorth up there. Now I just watched a video with someone that Crypto Erie had interviewed on this panel from Yellow, and they're a really big project. But furthermore, what he said about RLUSD kind of reminds me of what Monica Long just said about RLUSD and how RLUSD is going to flip USDC, and how RLUSD is going to be used as a tool to get XRP to be the North Star, essentially.
So how does XRP fit into those acquisitions? I'd like to hear a little bit about that. And then Monica, what gaps remain now? And how are you looking to close those gaps in the product suite?
Yeah. I'll take the first part and then hand over to Monica. Look, I say this, and I keep saying it, I'm going to keep saying it. XRP is the North Star of what Ripple's doing. We care more about what's going on in XRP than anybody else. There's obviously a lot of people who care, but we care more than anybody else. That will remain the case. Sometimes you'll see Ripple do something, and you'll be like, oh, I see a direct line between they did this, positive outcome around XRP, there's a direct line. Sometimes even people inside the company are like, hey, I don't get it. I promise you that when we do something over here, it may have 1 hop or 2 hops or 3 hops, but we're doing it because we think it's going to drive an outcome in the XRP ecosystem. So if we use these two recent, the bigger acquisitions we made last year, a company called Hidden Road in the prime brokerage services business, and then the second, a company called G Treasury, which has a sizable and growing office here in Sydney. I just mentioned that because I don't know if any of you were here, but kudos to that team. Both of them are a little bit different than how other crypto companies have approached it because they don't do crypto. right? G Treasury is last year processed about $14 trillion of payment flows. Do you know how many of those went through crypto or stablecoins? Zero. And that's the opportunity. And I promise you, like, we're not going to go force. They have, you know, over 1,000 corporates ranging from kind of mid-sized corporates all the way up to the Fortune 50. We're not going to go force Ripple payments on top of those customers. We're not going to go force Ripple custody on top of those. We're not going to force RLUSD, but we're going to start to introduce it. And we're going to have to start to point out, hey, you're holding these deposits in whatever bank in whatever country and they're getting zero yield. You could hold those in RLUSD and that would be a better outcome. Hey, did you know you could use XRP for your payment flows? And I'll tell you that the cultural fit of on both these acquisitions, of them understanding the North Star, they are bought in. They see how they can be a catalyst in transitioning a bunch of legacy, kind of boring, fuddy-duddy corporates into the future of financial infrastructure. I truly, deeply believe there will be robust opportunities in being the bridge between traditional finance and decentralized finance. I love this banner over here. Built for finance, trusted by institutions.
I like what he said there about payment flows, right? But then also one thing that I paid attention to that he said is everything that we do at Ripple is to support the XRP ecosystem, okay? And I'm thinking about how many times I've showed you guys now 3 times that Ripple has indirectly invested in Canton Network. So does that mean that their investment into those technologies, like BNY's tokenization platform, or when Hidden Road used Canton Network, or when recently, just recently, as a matter of fact, Ripple invested in this CrossX platform, didn't announce it on their Twitter or their LinkedIn profile, and then underlying that technology sits Canton. Does that have some trickle effect into the XRP ecosystem as well?
You know, I would agree with that, and I'm glad that you said that because it made me it made me remember something that I wanted to say a few sessions ago, about the one word that ties everything together, in my opinion, is interoperability, right? And they, like Ripple and everybody, just kind of say that word so much in this, you know, in this environment, and it would only make sense that, you know, like everything would end up eventually tying together to you know, to make the system just move that much smoother, would be to if all the protocols were inoperable with one another. So I agree. I would say yes to what you just said.
And I personally think that that's exactly what's going to go on. I've always said that I don't think that Ripple or any of these other chains are competing with each other, and instead they're building out a system in such a way where all these chains that are going to be the ones that survive, they're going to coexist with each other. And I don't think that this is a coincidence. Where the frick is it at? Because nobody seriously has still caught on to this yet. This Ripple ex-employee just recently, this happened this year, and nobody's said it yet. This Ripple employee, right, the VP of Ripple X, just started working at Digital Asset, you know, and then this whole entire trade web that they launched this $31 million Series B funding round into crossover markets, and Ripple was an investor into this, and I showed people how this trickled down into Canton Network. You guys just heard directly from what Brad Garlinghouse said, that anything that they do at Ripple supports the XRP ecosystem. So wouldn't that therefore then mean that this investment and any other investment that Ripple makes, the BNY investment, Hidden Roads, Ripple Technology, or a Ripple acquired company using Canton Network, this acquisition, those are all things that Ripple's doing, right? Wouldn't that therefore fit into the category of what Brad Garlinghouse said that would help support the XRP ecosystem? I'm not crazy for thinking that, right? Or maybe
I
I am.
definitely don't think so.
I think you're
I
right,
don't
bro.
think so.
It's going to
Yep.
be an interoperable ecosystem. That honestly, those statements though from Brad Garlinghouse were super bullish, and I think that at the end of the day, time will tell.
I
Does
feel
it?
like you said it's just going to work as like a partner, like just one unity. It has to assist it like a penny assists a nickel assists a dime, and a dime assists a quarter. So XRP is going to be used for the bigger movements.
Does anybody feel like he avoided the question?
I feel like he avoided the question.
Okay,
Yeah,
I personally think he avoided the question. I don't think he answered either of the questions.
it kind of felt like a Jerome Powell response.
Is that a red flag? Is that a red flag to you, bro?
So let me.
I feel like he underestimated Swift as if they're not doing anything, and if you ain't careful, I mean, bad things can happen.
Let me play it back. So like if I was, the way that I think about these interviews is if I was this lady, right? When I asked the question and then he didn't answer it, I'd have been like, "Excuse me, Ashish, can you answer my question directly, please?" Because he answered the question, but Jamie said he Jerome Powelled it. He answered it, but like said it in like such a way that sounded like he was answering the question, but like it's not like a direct answer. And I don't know, the way that I see this, I think it's bullish, absolutely, if what he says comes into fruition. But like, why can't these people just answer the question directly? Listen to this lady's question and then listen to how he answers it again.
Do you think the rise of RLUSD and regulated stablecoins limits XRP's upside?
Okay, so there's the question. Do you think the rise of RLUSD and regulated stablecoins limits XRP's upside, or does a native token still hold a unique liquidity advantage that stablecoins match? So he answers the liquidity question by saying that he thinks XRP is still the liquidity mechanism that traditional finance will utilize. But he doesn't answer the XRP question about RLUSD limiting its upside potential. Listen.
Or does a native token still hold a unique liquidity advantage that stablecoins can't match?
Before you had stablecoins, it was very hard to use any of the features on XRP. How do you get on and off? How the internet got started was that folks were able to dial in to the internet, then they got broadband access. Before that, it was just a handful of institutions and governments that could use the internet, but those on and off ramps gave access to the world. And I really think that stablecoins are on and off ramps. It makes it really easy to get on and then use all the great technology that blockchains are good for. In my opinion, really good for financial markets and having those form on XRP. I think all tokens are going to need liquidity. I think XRP is a great asset for providing that liquidity. I think it powers something called the XRP DEX.
Okay, so there's the liquidity answer, but he did not answer the first question, which is, do you see RLUSD limiting XRP's potential? Am I crazy for thinking that? Or, because if I was this lady, I'd have been like, okay, thank you for the second answer to my question, but you didn't answer the first portion, Ashish. Could you go back and answer that, please? Or am I crazy for thinking that?
No, you're not crazy, bro.
Nah,
No.
I don't think you're crazy. I think it's funny how he definitely avoided the question. But it just kind of makes me now I think everything is a conspiracy theory now, being in the community, is knowing everything that we know now. Because these people are smart enough to understand what they're being asked, and that they're equipped to answer these questions. And I think that it's funny that he avoided that portion of the question. But then, like I said, you had Monica Long and the president of Ripple and Brad Garlinghouse just recently do an interview where they were being grilled about RLUSD and XRP, and they were literally answering every single question about how RLUSD is going to be used to get XRP to the spot that it needs to be in, and for him to completely avoid the question,
It's almost like he was. It's almost like he was saying, like, if the blockchain, whatever they're using, doesn't have a stable coin attached to it, it's just non-viable.
Right. Like they
Yeah.
energized, like Rip XRP and Ripple is the big head of the unit, and you got to have a bunch of energy to feed it, to drive it. And that's, I think, how he answered the question without saying that, roundabout way.
This is why I asked you guys, because I wanted your honest opinion so that I didn't feel crazy, because I knew that you guys would give me honest feedback.
Cypress, one other thing too is like if you listen to other big people talk about blockchains, they always like throw in like occasionally how like third world country areas and stuff like that, they could get connected to the blockchain to get paid like a fair wage per se. So they're going to use a stable coin to pay people for work. Not necessarily everybody doesn't understand how blockchain works, but they understand how they get a paycheck. So if they get a paycheck in stable coins to provide the liquidity to the blockchain, if that makes sense.
I don't know, man. To me, sometimes I just don't like it when I can feel like people are avoiding that's like straightforward. To me, I'm like, bro, come on. Like if this was my interview, I'd have been like, nah, sheesh, bro, chill, back the fuck up, bro. Hold up. Hold up. For my audience, I asked you 2 questions. You only answered one part. Answer the first part, please. Go. Like I'd have been very, it also falls on the interviewee's part. I'm not saying it's Ashish's fault by any means, because maybe he just was like spitting game and like forgot, but it falls on the interviewer as well to double check and make sure that their questions are getting answered. It could be that as well,
Yeah, to me, from what I kind of got from that is that he was just alluding to RLUSD being essentially like onboarding into the XRP ecosystem, and he kind of goes macro view with the whole stable coins, talking about all of them are essentially to some degree, bringing people on a blockchain.
He does finish this off with something bullish, and he does mention that he does see XRP still playing, because she asked the second question now she says, do you see with Swift in the game, enhancing their technology, do you still see XRP as the bridge asset? And he does say, yes, I still see XRP as the bridging mechanism between traditional finance and blockchain. So that was cool to see that he did answer that question directly. But I don't know, just the way that question was answered didn't sit with me, especially considering that it's specifically asked is RLUSD going to limit, XRP's upside? He could have just simply said, to answer the question, no, it's not, and then been done. And that would have been a good answer, right? Because it would have been straight to the point. No, it's not going to limit XRP's upside. And then going on to that spiel that he went on, but he didn't.
True. He didn't actually say yes or no to that.
Yeah, he didn't say yes or no to that first question, which is just, to me, the way I process information and the way that XRP's performed with the rest of the risk assets, it's just, for some reason, I got to question this shit, y'all. But anyways, I appreciate your guys' feedback. It was good to hear both sides of the story. Man, I'll tell you what, the freaking Ripple employees would hate getting interviewed by me and Aqua. Like, not because we like are against XRP or anything, but because I would not let them beat around the bush with these questions. I would be like, nah, bro, hold up.
And I'd be bringing up old shit too, bro. Like, you remember on July 17th on the panel interview over in Denver, Colorado? Yeah, we listened. You actually said